Let's see if we can go to bits and pieces of Trump's speech. It's a pretty long timeline. What is it, about an hour? Okay, so we'll just go and see if we can just get some nuggets from this, or at least hear a few words from the tweeter himself in chief, Donald J. Trump. Stop it right there, Alex. Notice how he's wearing a blue tie, not a red tie. Very kind of a peaceful, unconscious cue versus red. It's like, the bull sees it, wants to charge. War is imminent. He's got a blue tie. Trump's a tweeter in chief and a peacemaker. Let's continue.
Mr. Secretary General, Mr. President, world leaders, and distinguished delegates, welcome to New York. It is a profound honor to stand here in my home city as a representative of the American people to address the people of the world. As millions of our citizens continue to suffer the effects of the devastating hurricanes that have struck our country,
engineered
I want to begin by expressing my appreciation
manufactured
to every leader in this room who has offered assistance and aid. The American people are strong and resilient, and they will emerge from these hardships more determined than ever before.
With massive
Fortunately, the United States has done very well since Election Day last November 8th. The stock market is at an all-time high.
Notice how Donald Trump now takes credit for the stock market boom, whereas before, his whole campaign, he warned of a massive economic collapse. A massive stock market crash would be the worst thing that we'd ever seen, that would devastate America, be worse than 1929. And remember when he said, believe me, it's a bubble. It's a bubble, America. It's a bubble. And now he's flip-flopped casually. He's taking credit for it. Please continue.
A record. Unemployment is at its lowest level in 16 years. And because of our regulatory...
That's because no one's working, Mr. Trump. Everybody's on welfare and government subsidies and assistance. So a lot of Americans just have flat out given up. It's such a job holocaust out there that most Americans, they flat out have put their head in the sand and they're just taking free money from the government. So it's not as good as you're sales pitching us right now, but please continue, Mr. President.
And other reforms, we have more people working in the United States today than ever before.
Okay, cut it there. Working for who? 5 monopolies? There's only 5 companies that represent the entire U.S. economy. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple. I'm missing one of them. I tweeted this earlier. Let's go to my tweet feed. AMTV Media here. There's only 5 companies that represent a total monopoly in the United States. So is that who they're working for as they just move towards artificial intelligence and there's no need for human workers? Looking for that tweet because I'm missing that 5th and that. I find that irritating. I can't think of that tweet. So I'm looking at my Twitter feed. Help me out here, guys. AMTV Media. I won't let this slide. We've got to figure it out. Microsoft. Is that what I missed? Yeah, Microsoft is the company I missed. So just 5 companies own all the wealth in America. Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook. It's our entire economy. Isn't that great? In fact, with the recent monopolistic acquisition that Amazon made with Whole Foods, they now have every intent to destroy and put out of business every grocery store in America. Every Ralph's, Vons, Safeway, H-E-B in America has every intent to bankrupt every single one of these companies and operate at a loss in America for as long as is needed until they put everyone out of business just because they can. And I got a reply, well, Christopher, Whole Foods is still awesome and they cut pricing in half. Short-term gain for long-term pain. As soon as they put all their competition out of business and continue operating at a loss to do it because they can, because basically Amazon is a giant illegal monopoly here in the United States of America, they will then have complete pricing power, total control, and they'll raise pricing. And guess what? You won't have any competitor to go to, just Amazon. On top of that, because They'll be the only supplier of food. That will be the singular infrastructure that supplies all the food for Americans to eat. If there's ever any kind of disruption, problem, shutdown, or anything like that, you'll go hungry and starve in the streets of America because everyone's depending on a single monopoly. Please continue, Mr. President.
Companies are moving back, creating job growth the likes of which our country has not seen in a very long time. And it has just been announced that we will be spending almost $700 billion on our military and defense.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's stop it there. Wow, $700 billion. That's great, Mr. President. President Trump, that's wonderful. Well, yeah, keep raising the debt. Why not make it $1 trillion? That sounds a lot better. $2 trillion maybe? $3 trillion? Because I like nothing better than paying my taxes so you can drop more bombs. Please continue. That's great news.
Will soon be the strongest it has ever been. For more than 70 years, in times of war and peace, the leaders of nations, movements, and religions have stood before this assembly. Like them, I intend to address some.
This is Trump on North Korea. I'm looking at an article from CBS New York. We'll probably get there in this speech, but he says, Rocket Man is on a suicide mission. It doesn't really look like it, Mr. Trump. You see, it looks like Kim Jong-un is kind of cleaning your clock right now, in actuality. I mean, he's the one actually firing missiles and building nuclear technology that now can hit every American city in the country, and that many top intelligence experts are warning that places like Long Beach, California might be facing imminent nuclear attack, which could potentially wipe out millions of Angelenos. But please continue, Mr. President, because your rhetoric and words is just so stern. So stern. Wow.
Some of the very serious threats before us today, but also the enormous potential waiting to be unleashed.
You know what the greatest threat is? Stop it there, is the U.S. federal government, our military-industrial complex, the monopolies that I just mentioned, the surveillance state, which is, by the way, still spying on you, but nobody seems to care. They're doing it right out in the open illegally. That's the biggest threat. These too big to fail banksters, people like Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase, those are the real enemies of this country, Mr. President. But please continue. The speech has been great so far. I'm loving it.
Of extraordinary opportunity. Breakthroughs in science, technology, and medicine.
Breakthroughs in science and technology, like weather modification?
Solving problems that prior generations thought impossible to solve.
Oh, like what? Universal welfare? You can stop it there, Alex. Universal welfare. So, you're going to just pay all of us little people because none of us will have jobs, but Jeff Bezos will be worth a few billion dollars more, so he can bump his stock price a couple pennies on the backs of all of us little peasants. You mean this upside down pyramid here that we've got? This upside down New World Order pyramid where all the baby boomers sit up here that have worked their entire lives and have been stolen from in 2008 and 2009 and can't depend on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. You're talking about that? All the millennials down here that are supposed to support. I mean, can you imagine? This is the weakest the country's ever been in world history. Upon invasion, millennials would probably just throw down their cell phones and wave the white flag. I'm not pigeonholing anyone tuning in here, but I mean, let's be realistic here. We're probably the weakest we've ever been in world history. But please continue, Mr. President. Great speech.
Growing dangers that threaten everything we cherish and value. Terrorists and extremists have gathered strength and spread to every region of the planet.
Stop it there. Yep, you're absolutely right. In fact, we're less safe now than we were prior to September 11th and after the U.S. Unpatriot Act. So after all the surveillance, all of the tyranny, and taking away all my freedom, you're 100% correct, President. We are less safe here in the United States of America. We are so less safe that there are so many terror attacks on an ongoing daily basis in Europe and in the United States, I can't even report on all of them because it's so frequent and it's happening so frequently as a result of you stealing all of our freedom post-September 11th through previous administrations and then continuing that, Mr. President, because, again, you haven't done anything to stop the surveillance state since moving into power here. In fact, you want to extend the surveillance state. So you're right. As a result of the United States federal government, U.S. intelligence covert operations creating all Al-Qaeda in the first place, and then supporting and backing people, funding and arming people like Osama bin Laden as we were fighting the Russians years ago in Afghanistan, but then turning on it when it became convenient, and then him being killed multiple times. A 6 foot, what was he, 4 guy who lived in a cave, probably playing Xbox or something, who was on dialysis that somehow the U.S. military industrial complex surveillance state just couldn't find. Some dude who was literally standing 6'4". And then after that, when they told us and sold us the lie, the biggest lie ever sold, that Al-Qaeda had been eradicated because big bad wolf Obama had gone in and gotten rid of Osama bin Laden, then they conveniently created something that never had even existed before. Another Operation Deep State Intelligence Op known as ISIS, or better known as Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, which now is the new Durka Al-Qaeda that every American, European fears and is being blown apart into smithereens on a daily basis. So you're 100% right there. There is more terror today, Mr. President, post the Unpatriot Act and post September 11th and post taking away all of our freedom and stealing it from every American, which, by the way, is illegal and unconstitutional, than there's ever been. Please continue.
Rogue regimes represented in this body not only support terrorists, but threaten other nations and their own people with the most destructive weapons known to humanity. Authority and authoritarian powers seek to collapse the values, the systems, and alliances.
Okay, so let's stop it there. Authoritarian powers. You're using these big, grandiose words. Oh my gosh, Trump, I don't know what they mean. Your speechwriters are so smart. Well, let's see here. How does the United States operate? Well, there's monopolies. So really how it operates is it's like an oligopoly. There's just a couple people that control everything. There's lobbying interests that basically feed tons of money into Washington, D.C., and then basically control the government infrastructure and even predetermine who's actually elected as president. In fact, a normal person can't even run as president because if you're not a part of the oligopolistic interests, you'd never even get there. So, wow, you're just using such big words. It's really impressive. Your speechwriters are really good. But it actually appears that we live under an authoritarian regime here in the United States of America that, in fact, and many academics and professors, philosophers, intellectuals, people just of above average intelligence would actually agree, even small middle school children, some of them are smart enough to know that actually it seems like we live under tyranny here in the United States ourselves, and that our own government is in actuality the authoritarian regime you're speaking to. Well, please continue. I'm very impressed with these very smart words.
Prevented conflict and tilted the world toward freedom since World War II. International criminal networks.
Notice how he threw
traffic,
in World
drugs,
War
weapons,
II
people,
there?
forced
Because we're approaching
dislocation
World
and
War
mass
III.
migration.
Once you familiarize yourself
threaten
with
our
it,
borders
predictive programming.
and new forms of aggression, exploit technology.
Oh, by the way, stop it there. I really want to
menace
congratulate the president for building a massive wall. This thing is so big. Have you guys seen it? Down in Mexico, this thing is huge. It's the biggest wall I've ever seen. Oh, wait a minute. There is no wall. And he's even been negotiating on that. I'm sorry, my mistake. I know that was a campaign promise, but no worries. You can basically just not do anything you told us you were going to do. Please continue.
Our citizens. To put it simply, we meet at a time of both immense promise and great peril. It is entirely up to us whether we lift the world to new heights or let it fall into a valley of disrepair. We have it in our power,
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death,
to lift millions from poverty, to help our citizens realize their dreams, and to ensure that new generations of children
That's
are
right,
raised
America. Let's
free
stop
from
it there. That's the
violence,
biggest lie
hatred.
ever sold. You can be whatever you want to be. Yeah, that's right. That's what the indoctrination system that teaches you to be a slave tells you. Oh, you can do whatever you want and be whoever you want to be, as long as you work for us, go to our schools, get massively in debt as a result of our BS credit system. You can be anything you want to be as long as you're our own predictive brainwashed slave. Please continue.
And fear. This institution was founded in the aftermath of 2 world wars to help
There he
shape
uses it again,
this
world
better
wars.
future. It was based on the vision that diverse nations could cooperate to protect their sovereignty, preserve their security,
like China,
and promote
like
their
China,
prosperity.
Mr. President. You can stop it there, Alex. Maybe turn down the volume in my ear just a tad if you could. Nations are going to help us. Oh, like China. Remember China? Remember how Donald Trump said when he was sitting there with his piece of cake when he struck Syria? By the way, what we're seeing right now with North Korea is a direct repercussion and consequence of Donald Trump's strike in Syria, of which we predicted here at AMTV before it happened. Literally predicted before it happened. We've been warning about it for years. So you're going to negotiate with these other nations. Oh, that's right, the UN, etc. Countries like China, Trump has sold us another lie, that are going to rein in North Korea. No, they're not. No, they're not. China just said over the weekend, just a couple of days ago, that Trump, you better back off North Korea. Know your place, Trump, is what China told you. Because again, who's in the driver's seat and who's in control? China, Russia, Iran, and proxy, North Korea. Go ahead, though. Great speech so far. Very powerful.
It was in the same period, exactly 70 years ago, that the United States developed the Marshall Plan to help restore Europe. Those three beautiful pillars,
Good.
They're pillars of peace.
Martial law or Marshall Plan?
Security, and prosperity. The Marshall Plan was built
We are
on the
so
noble
prosperous
idea
with debt
that the whole world is safer when nations are strong, independent, and free. As President Truman said in his message to Congress at that time,
Pause it here,
our
Alex.
support
I do want to mention,
European-
too, this is a great teleprompter read. For someone who always constantly told us, I don't use teleprompters, I speak from the heart, I just want to say this teleprompter pre-packaged, pre-written speech by your professional speech writers cueing you via teleprompter right now is really good. The tempo of how you're speaking and presenting, it's just so, it's really good. This is a great teleprompter manufactured speech, Mr. President. Please continue.
Strong sovereign nations let diverse countries with different values, different cultures, and different dreams not just coexist, but work side by side on the basis of mutual respect. Strong sovereign
so let's
nations
cut it there.
let their
Let's go to an article. So those are the basics of Trump's speech, obviously being quite facetious throughout it. But again, it's a lot of big rosy words and sternness and great teleprompter read and this kind of thing. But it's just talk. I mean, let's just be honest here. It's just talk, Mr. President. You're going to have to negotiate with Kim Jong-un, the guy with the bad haircut that you make fun of, Rocket Man. You're going to negotiate. Yeah, that's right, Mr. Trump. Big corporate badass yourself, art of the deal. You better start negotiating because we know who wears the pants in this relationship, and it's not you. It's China, Russia, Iran, and their proxy, North Korea. So start negotiating, Donald Trump. And that's just the truth. Again, I'm sure there's going to be some vigorous tweeting after Kim Jong-un launches his 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, maybe very, very real nuclear warhead missile that, God forbid, hits Japan, Guam, or God forbid, the west coast of the United States or any city in the world for that matter. I bet those tweets post those massive events, false flag attacks will be super aggressive. Oh, we're going to fight back hard. Oh, yeah, don't do it again, Kim Jong-un. You're on a suicide mission. I'm Donald Trump, and I'm gonna tweet this out. A lot of tweeting going on. A lot of tweeting, a lot of talk, a lot of baseless rhetoric, and a lot of unfulfilled promises that I've become and many of your supporters have become very, very irritated with. So we'll continue to update you on all these developments. Again, I'll be reporting on a brand new missile launch, probably within about 24 hours. And Alex and I will make sure to live stream this to you right when it happens. I would guarantee this is coming very, very soon. In fact, I'll say it again, Kim Jong-un, North Korea are so scared of your speech, they plan on making no changes to their predetermined launch of a new missile tomorrow. Let that sink in. Let that sink in.